Hello, Internet. My name's Icy the Fire Mage, and today I want to talk to you about the criminally underrated franchise Star Wars. No, not these movies, and definitely not these ones. You're all disappointments, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. Yes, even The Force Awakens. There's a link in the description. Go watch, have fun. I want to talk to you about these movies. I'll be honest with you, I love these movies. I watched The Phantom Menace for the first time when I was 7 years old, and it's still the first thing I think of when I hear the word science fiction. The Jedi Knights, the pod racing, the space battles, all of it blew me away. I watched the originals not long after, and boy, let me tell you, those are some good films.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
And so it was that Star Wars became a massive part of my childhood. I had Star Wars birthday parties, Star Wars action figures, Lego sets, toys, lightsabers, video games, room decorations, blankets, clothes, anything related to the Star Wars franchise I wanted in my possession. But it wasn't the amazing original trilogy. It wasn't Luke Skywalker or Han Solo that I loved so much. Those movies were exceptional, and Luke is still one of my favorite characters in fiction. But I fell in love with the prequel trilogy. The Clone Troopers, Jango Fett, Samuel L. Jackson and his iconic purple lightsaber, Qui-Gon Jinn, Tusken Raiders taking pot shots at racing pods. That was Star Wars for me. Maybe those movies weren't as good as the originals, but they were fucking cool. Immersing myself in this massive universe that was only ever hinted at in the original trilogy was my favorite pastime. Then, everything changed when the sequel trilogy attacked. These movies destroyed everything that had been built before them, shitting on beloved characters, concepts, and stories to sell us their garbage better than your old lame thing trademark new thing. It's like your old thing that you love, but way cooler, Grandpa. And with their horrific introduction, fans of the old lame thing that sucks now were left with this asinine quote: "Come on, man. They aren't worse than the prequels." A lot of people apparently hear that and either agree to it or are willing to discuss it. To me, it sounded and still sounds ridiculous, even after all the research I've done into why people hate the prequels so much. I won't go into a ton of detail here about why the sequel trilogy falls on its face and does nothing but suck for over 7 hours, but I will leave a link to another video series by Mahler, who has effectively destroyed them. Do not be intimidated by the content is worth the time it takes to consume, and it's engaging and interesting the whole way through, promise. So, faced with this ludicrous question of how these two trilogies compare, I set out to learn what the major criticisms of Star Wars The Phantom Menace were, so I could be fair to both sets of films when I inevitably created a series shattering the notion that the sequels were even comparable in their quality or craft. And after spending probably 100 hours or more rewatching all these movies and their making of documentaries, watching critically acclaimed reviews, listening to debates, and just writing my own thoughts out, I have decided to scrap that idea entirely and instead focus on critiquing the prequels themselves, since everything I've consumed up to this point has been entirely inadequate, both in scope and argumentation. As I've said already, I love these movies, and that gives me certain biases towards them. But I will do my best as a critic to remain objective, focusing on writing, structure, and characters, and how all these pieces of the movie work together to tell their story. My conclusions on whether these films are actually good, or if I am just nostalgic towards them, will be based on that. To help me do that, I would like to introduce the main focus of my critique today, and the springboard for the majority of criticisms levied against the prequel trilogy, Red Letter Media's Mr. Plinkett review of Star Wars, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Star Wars The Phantom Menace was the most disappointing thing since my son.
Mr. Plinkett argues in this review that these movies are catastrophic disappointments and that they lack the things that make the originals so iconic and masterfully crafted. By the end of his review, I'm sure you and I will be convinced, as so many before us were, that actually these movies are hot garbage. I have it on good authority that Plinkett has completely destroyed the prequels in these reviews, and they seem to be pretty popular around the internet, so I'm sure he makes a compelling case. I know these videos are a decade old, but I've only just seen them, and they're still public, so I assume the views expressed are still somewhat relevant. Let's take a listen.
I mean, how much more could you possibly fuck up the entire backstory to Star Wars?
Aw, fuck, dude, come on, don't give Disney any more ideas.
And while my son eventually hanged himself in the bathroom of the gas station, the unfortunate reality of the Star Wars prequels is that they'll be around. Forever. They will never go away. It could never be undone.
Tell me about it.
If you're someone who's under the age of like 20, who says his least favorite film in the series is The Empire Strikes Back because it was the most boringest one, then I suggest you shut this review off right now before I carefully explain how much of a fucking idiot you are.
Simpler times. Unfortunately, almost a decade later, no one on Earth is saying Empire is the worst one anymore.
So where do I possibly start?
The beginning, probably. Seems kind of like a natural jumping off point.
Lisa, I hate you crunching.
Nothing in The Phantom Menace makes any sense at all. It comes off like a script written by an 8-year-old. It's like George Lucas finished the script in one draft, like he turned it in and they decided to go with it without anyone saying that it made no sense at all or was a stupid, incoherent mess.
Yeah, that would really suck. Someone did that for a mainline Star Wars movie. Good thing that's not what happened.
I guess at this point, who's gonna question George or tell him what to do?
I take it you say action after we roll camera?
I'll say
You
action.
don't.
Sometimes I forget.
People forget.
If I forget to say action or cut, just step in and say action and cut.
I'm like 90% sure that that's a joke, Mr. Plinkett. The rest of the documentary seems to show a really good give and take dynamic between George Lucas and the rest of the cast and crew. I know it's nitpicky, it just seems weird that you'd show this awkward clip out of context for a snipe.
He controls every aspect of the movie. He probably got rid of those people that questioned him creatively a long time ago.
I know this may come as a shock to all of you watching here, but George Lucas did not control every aspect of any Star Wars movie. Hollywood is run by businessmen, first and foremost. Lucas had producers and bosses too.
I also think that everyone just assumed that a Star Wars prequel would be an instant hit, regardless of what the plot was. Really, how hard could it be to screw up? It's like screwing up mashed potatoes. You boil the water and pour the packet. Number 1, the characters.
Are we really sure this was made 9 years ago? This definitely is not a Last Jedi review, right?
The biggest and most glaring problem with The Phantom Menace is the characters. This is like the most obvious part of movie making.
Character writing is also apparently the most difficult, based on recent catastrophes.
But I guess I gotta explain it when talking about this turd.
Oh, go.
Let's start at movie making 101, shall we? You see, in most movies, the audience needs a character to connect with.
What?
Typically, this character is something called a protagonist.
I'm sorry. What?
When you're in a weird movie with like aliens and monsters and weirdos, the audience really needs someone who's like a normal person like them to guide them through the story. Now this of course doesn't apply to every movie, but it works best in the sci-fi, superhero, action, and fantasy genres. I picked a few examples to illustrate this point. Marty McFly, John McClane, Billy Peltzer, Sarah Connor, Neo, Charlie Bucket, Peter Parker, Cliff Secord, Johnny Rico, Rocky Balboa, and Kevin Bacon.
What? What the fuck?
God damn it, Plinkett, you were the...
You were the chosen one!
Why? Why did you record this section and leave it in? What the hell is a normal person? What do Sarah Connor and Johnny Rico, or Marty McFly and Rocky Balboa, have in common that makes them normal? I know you aren't going to tell me what normal means because I've watched this review like 11 times now, but it irritates me more every time I hear it, so I'm going to try to define it the best I can based off this list of characters. Unfortunately, I don't know who Billy Peltzer or Cliff Secord are, so they're going to have to come off the list. But if I had to give a definition of normal based on all these characters, the best I could do is that they are all young, debatably, human beings. I can't think of any other characteristics they all share. So, a normal person is a young human, based off the characters given. And it's true, a lot of really amazing stories have protagonists that function as an insert or guide for the audience into the story. A lot of really amazing stories don't have that. Has anyone seen Iron Man recently? Can anyone pick out the normal character in that movie? Tony Stark is a billionaire playboy super genius who designs a stable miniaturized nuclear reactor that he inserts into his chest, and a high-tech prosthetic suit that can effectively neutralize active war zones, absorb tank shells, and break flight altitude records. And Tony Stark fits the criteria of normal based on Plinkett's list, as far as I can tell. So when Plinkett says the audience needs someone who's like a normal person to guide them through the story, he's expecting you to fill in the gap of what that means to you. The thing is, no movie needs anything, really. They can even be incoherent if they're built around that idea. Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey is incoherent for a lot of its runtime, and I don't think anyone's rushing to call that movie objectively poorly written. The word movie is descriptive, not prescriptive. If I had to assume what this sentence was trying to say, without having the ability to talk to the people who said it directly, I'd say they want this movie to have someone for people or themselves to connect with, and they feel like it didn't. But what about people that connect with Qui-Gon Jinn? Or with Anakin Skywalker? Or Padme Amidala? Or more minor character like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Captain Tanaka? Hell, there are probably people that connect with Jar Jar Binks. There are some weird people out there, you never know. Everyone is different, and they connect to different things. You can't design your film around the idea that everyone should connect to and want to follow along with your protagonist, because some people just won't, no matter what you do. It's impossible for it to be any other way. So if you can't get everyone on board with a character, where is the acceptable line? It's a question that doesn't have an easy answer, but keep it in mind as we go through the rest of the video.
So in addition to being like an everyday kind of schlub, usually the protagonist is someone that's down on their luck, in a bad place in their lives, or someone where everything just doesn't always go perfectly for them.
Either you choose to be at your desk on time from this day forth, or you choose to find yourself another job.
Well, maybe it's time to get a real job.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley.
Mr. Plinkett, you have described every character that has ever existed in every form of media ever, except,
Woo! I like this!
including most antagonists and secondary or tertiary characters. That sentence does not mean anything. It doesn't even accurately describe anything. You've blanketed anyone who doesn't have a perfect life into it. How is this useful to...
Eventually they'll be confronted with some kind of obstacle or struggle that they gotta deal with.
War! We're going to war!
If we like them, we hope they succeed.
Oh yeah, Neo was on that list of normal characters, by the way. In case you missed that, I don't know if you caught it. The Chosen One, Master of the Matrix. That's just a normal guy.
The drama in the film is the result of us rooting for them against opposition.
Go get him, kid.
Plinkett, drama comes from our engagement with the media, not with the characters. The opening scene of the Game of Thrones TV show, rest in peace, you beautiful bastard, shame they never made anything after season 4, episode 3, is tense and dramatic. And I don't know any of those characters' names or anything about them. I'm not rooting for them, but I recognize the situation they're in is terrifying, and I can empathize with it. These statements you're making are categorical, but you're not justifying them, and there are examples that disprove them.
Eventually our will find themselves in the lowest point where it seems like all is lost. But eventually they'll pull through and conquer whatever force opposes them.
You're a terminated fucker.
Yeah, Ned Stark's set to make a big comeback any day now. I'm sure of it. Just wait for the books, guys. It'll be better, I promise.
It's satisfying when our hero gets ahead from where they started off at.
It can be. It isn't inherent to the concept. Rey's technically ahead of where she started at the end of the trilogy. Nothing about that is satisfying.
They make like a change. This is called an arc.
I don't want to keep stopping him like this. Of course I do. I'm just totally kidding. I love doing it. It's my favorite thing ever. But holy hell! A character arc is when, through the story being told, a character develops themselves because of lessons they learned or things they experienced. Characters do not need an arc to get ahead of the place they started out. In fact, as Plinkett pointed out, usually they start off in a low point, so getting ahead is relatively easy, as there isn't much room to go down. But it is still separate from their arc as a character. You said earlier we were doing very obvious stuff from Filmmaking 101, so I just assumed this would be pretty straightforward. But this is another categorical statement you've made that is provably wrong. What the hell?
Often, too, they'll get the girl in the end as icing on the cake. Now, I need to explain that I don't think that all movies should be the same or conform to the same kind of structure,
Oh, good. That's a relief. You had me worried there for a minute.
but it works well in certain kind of movies. So unless they're the Coen brothers, David Lynch, Paul Thomas Anderson, Stanley Kubrick, Alfred Hitchcock, Lars von Trier, David Cronenberg, Gus Van Sant, Quentin Tarantino, John Waters, Wes Anderson, Sam Peckinpah, Terry Gilliam, Martin Scorsese, Werner Herzog, or Jim Jarmusch, you really shouldn't stray away too far from this kind of formula, especially if you're making a movie that's aimed at children that has a cartoon rabbit in it that steps in the poopy.
Okay, this is something that gets tossed around a lot, that Star Wars is somehow intended for a child audience. It does have elements that would appeal to children, sure, but it also is incredibly dark at times. There's a lot of death and destruction that happens in these movies, and a lot of higher concepts like politics that younger minds can't even grasp. I understand the point he's making, but I don't think it applies well to this movie as a whole.
This is all, of course, completely applicable to the original Star Wars film and the character of Luke Skywalker.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
It's also completely applicable to the prequels. I know I've spent the majority of this video arguing against the ideas being put forward, but all of the things that Plinkett says he wants this movie to have are in there. I was arguing because the principle was wrong, not because it helps bolster the Phantom Menace in some way. In fact, everything he said up to this point, except the opening blurb about being disappointed and the snipes at George Lucas, have been things that the movie does really well. Let's explore them, shall we?
So in addition to being like an everyday kind of schlub, usually the protagonist is someone that's down on their luck, in a bad place in their lives, or someone where everything just doesn't always go perfectly for them.
Qui-Gon Jinn is a galactic peace officer working his day job sent to resolve a diplomatic and economic dispute above a planet called Naboo when he and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi are ambushed and almost assassinated at the hands of an organization called the Trade Federation. Fleeing for his life after failing to reach the negotiating table, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan sneak through an invading Federation droid army on the surface, meet a Gungan called Jar Jar Binks, who helps them travel through the planet's core to the capital city of Thule to meet up with Queen Amidala so they can warn her of the attack and find passage back to Coruscant to warn the Jedi Council and the Republic of the Trade Federation's betrayal. But our heroes are too late, and they have to rescue the Queen and steal a starship to run past the Trade Federation's blockade of the planet, which we were told was established legally.
Yes, of course. As you know, our blockade is perfectly legal.
Unfortunately, the ship is blasted one too many times by the blockade's laser batteries, and the hyperdrive, which allows for faster-than-light travel, was damaged, forcing Qui-Gon to land on a nearby planet called Tatooine, outside of both Trade Federation and Republic-controlled space to seek repairs. While Qui-Gon does maintain his calm demeanor and adapts remarkably quickly to a rapidly changing, high-stress situation that could lead to full-scale war in the Republic, I think it's pretty obvious that this situation is not ideal for him. Some might say he's down on his luck, or that he's in a bad place in his life, or maybe that things just aren't going exactly perfectly for him at the moment. Seems that way to me, at least.
Eventually they'll be confronted with some kind of obstacle or struggle that they gotta deal with. If we like them, we hope they succeed.
Along with all the opposition Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan have met thus far, after successfully gambling their way into a hyperdrive, Qui-Gon is accosted by a religious terrorist attempting our second assassination of the movie in order to prevent the Jedi Knight from bringing the Queen and his testimony back to the Republic space. I know it's subjective, but by this point, I liked Qui-Gon well enough, and I didn't really have any reason to want him dead. So I pulled for him in this conflict. Even though Darth Maul was the coolest fucking thing ever, you're wrong if you don't think so. Fight anyone. Even after narrowly escaping Tatooine, the Jedi Council refuses Qui-Gon's request to train Anakin, and the Galactic Senate refuses to take direct action against the Trade Federation without lengthy committees and deliberation.
Eventually our will find themselves in the lowest point where it seems like all is lost. But eventually they'll pull through and conquer whatever force opposes them.
In a carefully organized attack on the Palace of Thule, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan clash with Darth Maul, and John Williams created the incarnation of Flames with the greatest track of music to ever be set to the big screen. epic fight scene culminates in Qui-Gon fucking dying, which breaks with Plinkett a little bit, but his death does lead to the Council accepting Obi-Wan as a Jedi Knight and allowing him to take Anakin as a Padawan learner. Even in death, Qui-Gon was victorious over all his adversaries in the film. That's Qui-Gon meeting every step of Plinkett's outline. But we aren't done there, folks. Let's go through it one more time.
So in addition to being like an everyday kind of schlub, usually the protagonist is someone that's down on their luck, in a bad place in their lives, or someone where everything just doesn't always go perfectly for them.
Anakin Skywalker is a slave boy owned by a Toydarian named Watto on the planet of Tatooine. He and his mom live in squalor, but he works hard and finds enjoyment in building robots like C-3PO and racing pods, something no other human, as far as Anakin knows, can do. He's not got the best life, and he's never successfully finished a race, but he's talented and he's ambitious. He's just waiting for a chance to prove himself.
Eventually they'll be confronted with some kind of obstacle or struggle that they gotta deal with. If we like them, we hope they succeed.
After barely besting Sebulba in the Boonta Eve pod race, Anakin must leave his mother behind and travel across the cold, dark galaxy to a planet called Coruscant, where he is taken before the Jedi Council, the ultimate defenders of peace and justice in the galaxy. They immediately reject him, not allowing Qui-Gon to take him as a Padawan and denying him entry into the Jedi Order. After the crisis of the information surrounding Naboo is resolved, the Council tests Anakin's Force sensitivity with a guessing game, which he excels at. And then they reject him again, accusing him of being too filled with fear. This little boy, who, after proving his merit to a Jedi Knight in a brutal and dangerous race, has left home on the only planet he ever knew, traveled across a massive galaxy to a planet literally covered in cityscape, and was rejected and dismissed by the leaders of galactic justice without even being given a chance. He has to deal with the entire scope of the galaxy without a clear goal or a family around him to support him at the age of 9, and he doesn't even have a place where he knows he can fit in. In fact, he knows he's becoming something of a burden to the man who freed him.
Qui-Gon, sir, I don't want to be a problem.
And to the Council that he is afraid of, and that is afraid of him.
Eventually our will find themselves in the lowest point where it seems like all is lost. But eventually they'll pull through and conquer whatever force opposes them.
Despite the setbacks at Coruscant, Anakin accompanies the Jedi to Naboo, where Qui-Gon tells him to watch and learn, and try to get an understanding of how the Jedi conduct themselves and how to perform in high-stress environments. Unfortunately, the Battle of Thule separates them, but Anakin manages to demonstrate incredible skill piloting a starfighter, and takes down the droid control center orbiting the planet. Even though he is hailed as a hero and he helped win the battle, he couldn't save Qui-Gon Jinn from his fate. Though the knight that saved him died, he was finally given a chance by the Jedi Council, who agreed to let Obi-Wan train him, and he sets down the course to become the Jedi Qui-Gon believed he could be. This is what happens when you make statements as broad as Plinkett does. I can do one of these for Watto if you wanted me to. Now let's get back to the Plinkett critiques, or I might actually start writing one.
This was accomplished even without all the wonders of modern CGI. Now with all you've just learned in this video that I've made for educational purposes.
He said that, right? And I still don't know if it's a joke or not. I'm assuming it isn't, because I know Red Letter Media hates these movies still to this day. But man, I wish it was.
I want you to tell me who the main character of the Phantom Menace was.
Oh, pop quiz. Okay, I'm good at these. It was Qui-Gon Jinn. He was the driving positive force behind every plot point in the movie. Bonus round, Palpatine is the main villain, because he's the driving negative force behind every plot point in the movie. Easiest quiz of my life. What do I win?
I can tell you it's not the Jedi.
What?
They were just on some kind of boring mission that they didn't really care about.
What the fuck?
Plus they're fucking boring themselves.
I don't even really know where to start with this one. The beginning probably seems kind of like a natural jumping off point, but I'll do my best with it. Boring is subjective, right? That's categorical. There's no such thing as objectively boring. It's literally an emotional state. It can only exist in you as the subject who experiences emotions. So I can't tell you that this isn't boring. Only that I didn't think it was, nor did I think the characters were. In fact, this whole situation is threatening a galactic scale war, and it's not going well for our Jedi POV characters. That's pretty intense, all things considered. Billions of lives are potentially at stake here. As for the mission, the Jedi definitely care about it, In fact, they risk sneaking aboard an invading army's landing transports, flying through a military blockade, emergency landing on a Hutt-controlled system, gambling their spaceship on a pod race, and their lives in a fight against Darth Maul in order to see it all the way through. It's probably the most important thing happening in the galaxy at the moment. I can't imagine they aren't taking it seriously. You know what? It's fine. I'm sure that we're going to go into more detail about why they aren't our protagonists besides they're boring. Let's take a listen.
Wasn't Queen Amidala, because she was some foreign queen. The movie was certainly not really about specifically either.
Oh, okay. He just moved on from that point, and we're on to the next one. Holy fucking shit, dude. What the fuck am I watching? What do you, my beloved audience member, think he means by foreign queen? Because I have no idea. She's a queen in a system within Republic space. I don't think that makes her a foreigner, dude. He's right that Amidala is not the protagonist, because this movie has multiple stories happening within it. Although you could make the case that she is a protagonist. She has her own story that happens alongside that of the Jedi, which has its own path, climax, and conclusion. I think I'd classify her as the deuteragonist, character second in importance to the protagonist, behind Qui-Gon. But he isn't going to qualify this statement either, so what's the point of me even laying any of this out?
You might be thinking that it's Anakin.
No, I still think it's the Jedi, and I'm confused why you did so little to prove that it isn't.
Because he was like a slave and saved the day at the end by accidentally blowing up the starship. But the audience doesn't meet Anakin until 45 minutes into the movie. And then the things that are happening around him are pretty much out of his control or understanding.
Yeah, it's almost like he's the normal character that can guide audience through the plot or something stupid.
If a protagonist has no concept of what's going on or what's at stake, then there's no real tension or drama.
No, Plinkett, there's still drama because we know what's going on. We don't need the protagonist to understand the inner workings of the plot for the plot to be dramatic, as long as we understand it. If our protagonist accidentally saved the day and didn't get how, but we were given extra information that they didn't have or couldn't grasp that allows us to understand it, it can still be dramatic and satisfying as a payoff. Like the entirety of the Forrest Gump movie.
Without that, there's no story.
Why?
So the conclusion is that there isn't one.
No, but seriously, why?
Before the movie opened.
Oh, okay. We're done then. Really. That's it, by the way. That's all the arguments made in this video for why the characters are bad. The Jedi aren't the protagonist because they're boring and they don't care about the mission. They stake not only their lives, but the lives of the Queen of Naboo, and that means there's no story. Why? Fuck you. Movie sucks. See ya!
Before the movie opened, I was really excited to hear that Scottish actor Ewan McDonald was going to be playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. I thought that was a great choice, and he'd be perfect as the lead of this movie. But he wasn't really. He just sat on the ship and complained a lot.
The Queen's wardrobe, maybe, but not enough for you to barter with. Not in the amounts you're talking about.
I wanted a different movie, but instead I got this movie. And Obi-Wan wasn't the lead, so that's bad.
So you may like the characters.
Oh, I did. I thought they were awesome.
You know, if you're stupid.
Aw, man.
But let's ask some real people about the Star Wars characters and see what they say. I posed this simple challenge to them. Describe the following Star Wars character without saying what they looked like, what kind of costume they wore, or what their profession or role in the movie was. Describe this character to your friends like they ain't never seen Star Wars. The more descriptive they could get, the stronger the character, eh?
What? No. No, this is a memory test. I haven't seen Shawshank Redemption in a long time, and I couldn't give you an accurate description of any of the characters except that Red is played by Morgan Freeman, I think. But I know those characters are fantastically written. What the hell do you think that this is going to prove? I mean, I'm obviously going to play along because I'm incredibly petty, but there's no way this does anything for either argument at all. Surely people understand that, right?
Han Solo.
Okay, Han Solo. He's an arrogant, cocky, criminal opportunist looking for a way to get out of debt and out of the scope of Jabba the Hutt. He gives off an air of not really caring about anything but himself, but when the chips are down, he risks everything to help his friends and do what he thinks is right, eventually proving himself invaluable to the rebellion and to Luke and Leia. I understand that I have the benefit of having the time to write out my thoughts, but I'm doing my best to play along with the spirit of this game.
He's a rogue. He's very arrogant, but charming. roguish, if you will.
Han Solo is totally dashing.
Wannabe dashing. He fancies himself a playboy.
So, like, he's a smarmy, cocksure, womanizer? Scoundrel.
He is pig-headed.
Completely sexy. In, like, a bad boy sort of way, where, like, he's gonna ride the line.
He's got a bit of a dark streak to him with, shooting Greedo in the bar.
But also, deep down, has the thief with the heart of gold. That's his character, really.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Okay, Qui-Gon Jinn. I love Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn is a proud, noble, and dedicated peacekeeper. He's stoic and calm in the face of serious adversity and extremely adaptable to rapid changes in situations. He comes up with and commits to plans quickly under extreme stress, and he's exceptionally confident in his own ability and understanding of the universe and the Force, even defying the will of the Jedi Council repeatedly in order to pursue what he believes is most important. His pride can lead him to arrogance and recklessness, and he is willing to bend the rules, break ethical standards, and gamble with lives in order to accomplish his goals. In the end, Qui-Gon's pride gets him killed, but earns Anakin a place in the Jedi Order. Honestly, Qui-Gon's questionable ethics and operations outside the will of the Council make him subjective. One of the most interesting characters in all of the Star Wars lore.
He is stoic.
I don't remember that character.
Okay, is Liam Neeson with the beard?
Oh, yes.
Well, he has a beard. Qui-Gon Jinn, and he was...
Let's see here. Stern?
Your friends aren't very good at this game, Mr. Plinkett.
C-3PO.
Alright, C-3PO is a cowardly, emotive, but not incredibly self-reliant droid who acts as an observer and comedic character in the original trilogy. He's sort of clunky and uncoordinated, which makes him, despite his emotiveness, feel like he lacks complexity, playing into the fact that he is a robot.
His character is kind of the bumbling sidekick.
Afraid, scaredy cat, he's timid.
C-3PO is anal retentive.
Is prissy.
Well, C-3PO is prissy. He's used a lot as comic relief.
He's the comic relief.
High-strung.
He's bumbling, effeminate.
See, this is why this method is dumb. C-3PO is objectively a fantastic character, really well written, and even you would probably agree to that. But your crew only came up with like 4 separate descriptors of him in all of those clips combined.
Queen Amidala.
Padme Amidala is a young, pacifistic ruler with grand ideals about the value of peace and democracy. She's careful and tactically minded, employing body doubles and guards that stand in her stead to protect herself from those that might threaten her or her position. Though she is broadly against the use of force, she cares deeply about the people she is responsible for, and will defend them violently if necessary. She does everything in her power to maintain diplomatic relationships and unify people around her to her cause, but she doesn't shy away from having to take more direct approaches to the problem if diplomacy fails. She's also incredibly kind to young Anakin Skywalker, comforting him as he adjusts to his new life traveling across the stars, showing an immense amount of empathy despite her own struggles and conflicts.
That is going to be fucking impossible because she doesn't have a character.
She is, she's Natalie Portman.
Yeah, just kind of...
Well, I can't say she's a queen. I was gonna say she's a queen.
Normal, I guess. Just kind of normal.
Makeup would be a description. I was gonna describe the makeup.
Describe Queen Amidala's character. Monotone.
She
looks a lot like Keira Knightley.
I can't answer that, you know it.
So...
she is...
Plinkett, seriously, your friends suck at this. They are describing the body double. the body double is not Queen Amidala.
This is funny, by the way. I get it.
Dude, you have no idea.
Continued in part 2.
And that's it, everybody. That is part 1, the character section of Red Letter Media's Star Wars The Phantom Menace review. So, if you were following along, there was about 10 minutes of Plinkett video in there. In that 10 minutes, Plinkett argued that movies made for kids should probably stick to an outline he described with a protagonist following a series of hardships until their eventual success and triumph in the end, ignoring completely that The Phantom Menace fits that mold to the letter, at least 3 times over. He argued that the Jedi were not the protagonist because they were boring, and that the characters were bad because his friends didn't remember them. Or in the case of Padme, remembered the wrong character completely. It's been a journey. This is the video that destroyed the prequels, by the way. Proved them objectively without merit. This video has 10 million views and 71,000 likes. This series launched Red Letter Media's 1.3 million subscriber channel into popularity. This is the series everyone points to explain why the prequels suck. And the caliber of arguments are Obi-Wan wasn't the lead and the Jedi were boring. I want you to understand, audience, I merely described characters in response. I showed how they fit the scaffolding the Plinkett review built for a good story, and I gave a brief overview of them when Plinkett asked for a description. I haven't talked about the quality of these characters or their writing once in this entire video, except a brief personal opinion on Qui-Gon's uniqueness and intrigue. I think that every character, down to the Governor of Thule, the old man with the pointy white beard and purple robes, is well written. I think Jar Jar Binks is well written, staggeringly. And I think I can make a convincing argument as to why. I have done an immense amount of research and reading and listening and writing in order to come back to this, the magnum opus of prequel criticisms, to find out that every argument made can be countered by a basic logical formulation of ideas and a description of 3 characters. I am upset about it, and I will cry more, thank you very much. My point is, I want to respond to this entire series, but doing so won't do The Phantom Menace justice, because the argumentation against the film isn't just bad, it's so surface level, we won't even approach anything that looks like an objective issue with any of Plinkett's points. Once I finish the series, I will make a separate long-form critique of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, where I will dive deep into everything I feel I am capable of speaking about, from characters and writing to set pieces, artwork, music, score, and George Lucas himself. But until then, I'm going to keep tackling these Plinkett videos one at a time. There are 9 of them and an outtakes video, so my goal will be one every Saturday for 9 weeks. I do need to script each one individually, and I want to make sure I'm putting out a product I'm proud of, so I won't promise that I'll stick to that timeline, but it's something I will strive for. Also, this is a tiny brand new channel, and I have virtually no social media presence at all, due to extenuating personal circumstances. If you like what I've made here, and you want to help support what I'm trying to make in the future, consider sharing the video around and leave a like and a comment. They are incredibly helpful for growth. Plus, it puts a little smile on my face every time I see some new engagement. I have a Twitter account that I will eventually learn how to use. It's @FireMage. I'll link that as well if you ever want to send me a message or just have a chat. Once I get a little bit of a following, I'll use it for updates about projects and video release dates as well, so if you use it, you might as well stop on by. Eventually, I will set up other platforms as well, but I want to focus on making videos and content for the moment. Thank you for listening to my post-amble if you made it this far. I'm going to go now and stand in a corner and either babble incoherently or yell angrily about boomers, or both. See you next time.